What's going on guys, CasualSavage here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a thumbnail in Photoshop. Now if you struggle to pick out fonts for your thumbnail, I have made a video in the past giving my top best fonts for thumbnails, and a link to that video will be in the description. All the fonts I show are free. So here we are in Photoshop, and the first things first is you need to have the correct dimensions. YouTube supports 1280 by 720 and I have a resolution of 300. Now bear in mind when you put the 1280 by 720, make sure it is selected in pixels. From there you can leave everything else the same and just select create. So here's our blank canvas, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is simply finding an image we can add on. So in this video I'll make a thumbnail for, let's say, a tutorial in Photoshop itself. So the best place to get your images is definitely Google Images. So what I tend to do is either look for a 4K photo or 1920 by 1080. That way I know the resolution is going to be crisp, and obviously they always have the best pictures. Now in some cases I won't need to go onto Google, but let's say I'm doing a gameplay, so Fortnite. What I'm going to do is type in Fortnite and then I'll add wallpaper. But then after I'll put a space. Now you can see 4K instantly comes up, but let's say I want 1920 by 1080. What I would do is put in 1920 by 1080, and by is the X. As you can see, these are different images we can use for our thumbnail background. So I like this one here, and this is the exact same image I used in one of my thumbnails previously, and all you would do is right click and copy image. Then come back to Photoshop, create a new layer by pressing this button, and press Ctrl V on your keyboard, and you can see it will be pasted in. Notice it is too large, meaning parts of it is cut off. Now press Ctrl and T on your keyboard to bring up the transformation tool, hold Shift and Alt and drag in from a corner, and as you can see it makes the image smaller. Now I know I didn't explain how I zoomed out. Pretty simple, hold Alt on your keyboard and use your mouse wheel. That's it. Now I'm going to press Ctrl T again, and I'm going to enlarge the image even more because I want this part to be the main focus. So I'm going to drag it out, and I want that guy in the middle, so that's fine with me. So yes, I have cut out the image. You can see the image goes off the layer, but that's okay because this is the section I'm interested in. Now the next thing you can do is create another new layer. So again, it's this button at the bottom right. Then we can add on this rectangle. Now this rectangle is going to be a lot more useful than you think. So up here at the top, I'm going to turn the stroke off. So it's going to be like this. The fill, I'm just going to choose black for now, and you'll see why, because we're going to be doing a bit of editing to it. So I'm going to drag over only halfway like this. I'm going to press my move tool and position this to the center. So this is currently what we have. Now I'm going to come over to the side again, so you can see it says properties, and we can now adjust the black by selecting this color and selecting the gradient tool. Now from here, what I'm going to do is create a gradient. So I'm going to keep it at a dark grey for the first one by double clicking and changing that to dark grey. And this one up here, I'm going to come to the top right, so the one above, I'm turning the opacity to 0. As you can see, it now creates this nice fade for us. And this can be with any color. So the first color can be red, for example. You can see we now create a nice red, or purple for Fortnite. So let's go with that, as you can see. And then also you can see if I go off this section here, we then get a color picker. Now this means anything we select, Photoshop will pick up that color. So I'll go for this lightning color. I'll left click it. You can see it's white. That's what it picks up. But if we go, let's say, over here to this blue guy, you can see it then picks up blue. And I'll show you a before and after because that looks really nice. So it's right here. It's the rectangle one. That's before. That's after. You can see it makes a massive difference. Now you can play around with that as much as you want to. Be very experimental, and you don't even have to pick a transparent background. So I'll show you a different way now. So I'm going to leave that layer there. I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm going to add a rectangle again, but I'm going to drag it all over. I'm going to come to the move tool, just center it like this. This time I'm going to do the exact same thing, coming to the gradient, and I'll select the gradient, and let's say I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to select OK and leave it as it is. Now I'm going to put this layer underneath the layer we have just created by left click and dragging it, So you can see that layer is now showing. What I'm then going to do is change the blend type. So I'm going to come to where it says normal, and I'm going to change this to soft light. As you can see, that is now what we get. The colors look a lot different, and I think it looks really good. It just makes it a lot more unique, and I'm not saying you have to use the one I've just shown you, but you can see it does bring a lot more colors out of the image, and it just makes it a bit different. You can see we now have green, we have orange, we have pink, red, everything right here, and it looks really nice. Now you can take this to the next level, and that is by adding on a color corrector, which you can get from Graphics Pack, and I will be showing you one that I recommend right now. So this is the graphics pack I recommend. It's from Stephen Van. A link to this specific graphics pack will be in the description, and you can see over to the side it says color corrections. Now not only color corrections come with this, you can see there are a lot of things, but the main one I use is color corrections. Now a really simple way to pick which one's best for you, instead of picking from here, I drag the entire folder up here and on here. Then I'll select this arrow, and you can see we can now see them one by one. So what we do is select the empty box. You can see that looks amazing, but it's that simple. So you can see before and after. And this is how I pick it. If I don't like it, I'll just left click, delete it. And I'll just go through like this until I find one that I like. Okay, so I've went through and I found out 3 that I like. So there's this one, there's this one, and there's also this one right here. Now this part all comes down to personal preference. You can pick whatever you'd like, and you may disagree with the one I pick. Like this one for example, it looks really nice, but I would rather have one with more colour, so I would delete that. This one looks amazing, and so does this one. So this is the tough decision. Me personally, blue is my favourite colour, so I'm going to pick blue. And that's simple. That's how I pick my color correctors, and that's how I add them on. Now you can make a few more adjustments to this overall image by coming to the adjustments tab and come to brightness and contrast, and you can see you can either bring the brightness or bring it down. Me personally, I think everything is good as it is, so I'm not going to be changing anything for now. But then you can also pick the curves here, and you can just choose how bright or dark you would want it. So you can see you can control the highs, the mids and the lows. And if you make a mistake or you don't want some dot there, just drag it off. As you can see, it gets deleted. And then the final one I'll recommend in the adjustments tab is hue and saturation. You can see where it says hue, we can drag it over. As you can see, it'll change the colors. So if you don't like, say, the default graphics color, the graphics pack color correction, then you can just come here and pick one that you like. For example, Fortnite is, of course, the main color is purple. So you could go with something like this. And in fact, I will. So I'm going to leave it like that. So we've done that part. Now let's add on some text. Now with text, I tend to stay with very few. I don't use many. So I'm going to drag out a box. Now the first thing I'm going to be doing, because I know nothing about Fortnite, literally nothing, I'm going to research some things that I can add on. So currently looking for some game modes. I guess save the world is a game mode, so I'm just going to go with that. It sounds like a cool phrase anyway. So save the world is the text I'm going to be adding. So all I'm going to do is type in save the world, just like that. Now I'm going to press Ctrl A on my keyboard so my text is highlighted. At the top left you can see we have a selection of different fonts we can use. Now in the past I've shown you how to install fonts. It is very simple. I will link that video in the description if you do have troubles. Now these ones just above this line are the main ones I use. This one I don't know why that's there, but you can see stuff like Nexabold, SF New Republic, Big John, Big Noodle Titling and Keep Calm. These are the main ones I always use because I think they always look the best. Now for this one I'm going to go with Bebest New. I'm going to select that, and then I want to bring up the font size. So I'm going to come up here and drag this up like this. I'm then going to hold Alt on my keyboard and drag from the bottom so this box is at the right size like this. I'm going to come back to my move tool and I'll drag this here. Now I think that looks pretty good. White text, nice purple background, but let's add some effects to the text. So we're going to come to the effects tab and we're going to come to blending options. So the first thing I want to add is bevel and emboss. You can see it makes a slight change. That's before, that's after. Now I'm going to bring up the size a bit, and I'm also going to soften it a tiny bit. that's how I'm going to leave it. You can play around with it a bit more. You can also add texture if you like. Me, I'm not going to. Stroke, you can add stroke if you want to. I used to use stroke quite a lot, but now I don't. No specific reason, it's just because I used it too much. So I'm going to uncheck that, but it's one I recommend you check out. And what I'm going to add on is a drop shadow. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to turn the opacity all the way up, I'm going to bring up the spread, and I'm going to keep it like that. So you can see it adds that layer behind. This is before, that is after. It makes the text a lot more visible. The angle is currently at 90 degrees, but if I bring it like this, minus 90, you can see it comes up there. And me personally, I think it looks a lot better, because then it's hiding the bright part on the image itself, and now the text is showing a lot more. Now another thing you can add is gradient overlay. Now straight away this one's been added, and you can see it looks like it is shining. Now the reason for that is because the bevel and emboss. So if I turn that off, that's normal, that's with bevel and emboss. Now it looks pretty good, that style of colour, simply because it's Fortnite. Fortnite's a fun game. I think I've never played it, but yeah, come to gradient, and it's the same style of gradient that we were working with earlier on. Really simple to use, and let's say for example we want to create like a metallic colour. Now I've gone into a full in-depth tutorial on how to create a metallic or silver colour, so I highly recommend you do check that out in the description. So I'm going to set this to white. I'm going to come across a little bit and double click, and I'm going to set this to a darker grey, like here. I'm then going to come across a bit more, I'm going to come up in the greys, I'm going to come across a little bit more, come up a bit more, I'm going to come across to the end and set this all the way to white. Select OK, select OK, I'll then reverse. So as you can see, this is now the style of text we get. It goes from light to dark. Pretty simple. Then you can also see style is here, and you can see if I have reflected, that is then what it creates, and I think that looks really nice. So I'm going to select OK. As you can see, we now have Save the World. Now I'm going to show you a few more tricks to do with the text, so I'm going to double click it. So it's highlighted, I'm going to size it down, and let's say you want to spread out the wording. So to do that, come up to the character styles over here. Then you can see it says VA, just left click and drag this. As you can see, this now gets dragged out. Me personally, I don't like this style with a gradient type of text, but if it is a solid color, then I think it looks a lot better. Now that's my personal preference, but of course you may decide you like it. Now that is that part done. Now there's one more thing I want to show you, and that is adding some sort of lights to the image. So you can see it's a bit dark on the edges, it doesn't look as appealing. So what I'm going to do is come down here to where the rectangle is, I'm going to add a new layer above it. I'm then going to come to my brush tool, which is over here to the side. As you can see, brush tool. I'm going to come up to the top, I'm going to change the size down, and so the hardness is going to go to 30%, or close to 30. Now if you have cap locks on, you can see it's going to look like a plus, so turn it off and you get this circle. I'm going to press the open bracket on my keyboard, or the close bracket I should say, and you can see it makes this bigger or smaller. If you don't know how to do that, then just come up here and you can change the size from here. Now I'm going to change this color to white, and like I said, this is going to create us some lights. So when I left click, as you can see that's done there, left click here, I'm going to make this a bit smaller now, and I'll left click just here, also here, and just one right here. Now yes, it looks like a bit of a mess right now. All we're going to do is turn the opacity down. So come up here, make sure you select on that layer and turn it down. You can see it just brings more lighting to your overall image. So if I turn that off, that's before, that's after. It just lights everything up, and in my opinion it looks a lot better. Now getting on to saving the image itself, it's really simple, and with this, because we've added a color corrector, we've added a few effects, it's going to make the overall image size quite large, and YouTube has a limit. I'm not too sure what the limit is, so the way you would save it is come to File, Export, Export. You can do quick export as PNG, choose where you want to save it, give it a name, and select save. As you can see, here is that image. It's only over 1 megabyte, so that's really good. We can double click it. As you can see, this is the full image completed, ready to be put onto YouTube. As mentioned at the start of the video, if you are struggling with fonts, then head over to the description and check out the video where I made on the best fonts for thumbnails. But that's it for this tutorial, and I'll be back for another one soon.